Okay, so here's our first example. I'm just going to go through a few examples and pull out the strengths of each example, and where, if there's anything challenged, I'll pull that out too, because I think we can learn just as much from that than the strengths. Now, this is the Natural Beauty Workshop. What I like about this page is, for one thing, the background, I believe they're using Pro, which means that they can have a custom background, and the background kind of says, I could be entering a bar of soap and be wrapped up. I mean, it kind of has the wrapper of a background behind it. So you feel like you're already in the brand because the packaging is somehow represented. So for what they're doing, that's perfect because the brand essence is kind of coming through. Also, what I like about it is because they have a background, then my eye is kind of pulled into, this is the composition piece, so they've composed the page so that my eye is pulled into the middle of the page, and so the title is large enough to where I can read it, and the header is right focused on the visuals. So the composition of the visuals is nicely balanced.
Yeah, real quick, we had a question about what TypePad Pro is, and just for folks that are new to TypePad, we have several different levels of service, and TypePad Pro is the one where you can have unlimited blogs with unlimited authors and a lot more flexibility in design than you would with a TypePad Basic or a TypePad Plus package. So I just wanted to throw that in there since we mentioned TypePad Pro just earlier.
Yeah, it gives you more control. It's something that I recommend because the more visual control you have, then the more you show your audience that you care about your business, and therefore you're going to care about what they're bringing to you. So, okay, next slide.
Next slide.
All right, so this is my PR blog, and what I do here is I just showcase my clients. So I'll launch a brand and then talk about the different things that we accomplish together. So in terms of composition, we've got negative space on the top, which means that the eye can kind of, sort of fall into the negative black space there without getting lost in all the visuals. But more than that, you're going to see a picture of every client. So the clients are actually being showcased. So the composition is kind of saying, because I've got the photograph of the person a little bit larger than the text, and it's directly below, and it's got a lot of white space around it. It's basically saying, the clients are important here. We're spotlighting people. So it's communicating that in the way that it's arranged and in the way that it's composed. Okay, next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is a really interesting one. We've got a pretty powerful, kind of swoop there in the middle. But on the right side, we've got two columns, and this is really tricky to do. There's only some people who can really pull that off depending on the context of the information. So in a way, this would be a little bit easier to read if the inner right column was on the left side of the content, because then that swoop could come in the middle and our eyes would be directed into the middle. So these are the kinds of things. I'm not saying like everybody needs to become a designer, but if you kind of start becoming aware of composition and grid, then you can increase your readability and increase focus. And you want people's eye to be pulled to what's important that day so that they're in time with your changing information and your changing events. The other thing is there's absolutely nothing wrong with emulating the color palette into your font colors, and we'll talk about color a little bit later. But in this case, because the color these are really highly saturated colors, so the blue and the orange are directly they're even with the top colors, and therefore eyes can get lost. So this person has, I really admire this person, by the way. She's got just some really amazing offerings, and so this is just to sort of increase her readability. Those are the things I would suggest.
And something I wanted to point out about, this is Susan L. Reed, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
About Susan's design is also, a lot of times your logo may not be the most important element of the page, that the logo can direct people, the design directs people to the action you want them to take. In this case, probably, looking at the trailer for her book or getting on her free newsletter. A lot of times the function of design is to guide people to get into your funnel or your contact list. So a lot of times when people are first working with a brand or a logo, they want the logo to be the biggest thing on the page, which, it's great to sort of show off your designer's talents, but it should be directing people towards your talents.
Exactly. For her, kind of more white space, more of a magazine feel, more general focus, and even events around getting sign-ups that are interesting and engaging, would kind of be the information activity I would want to go to on that one. But that's a good point.
Do you have any? We had a question about columns versus using columns on either side, or the content with two columns, or what are you seeing right now as what people are?
So that's good. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. By showing different examples. So go on to the next one, and I'll address that question in the next one, because this is a really good example. Now, of course, Seth is great. Everybody says that. But here's a really good case. Well, there's two things to talk about here. So the way I'm going to answer that is probably kind of a frustrating answer, which is that it really depends upon what you're trying to pull focus to and what your business is about, because everything has to be framed to reinforce that. So here, we know Seth's brand is kind of all about simplicity. The guy can write, he can pack a powerful, amount of information in a very small space. So he's got a 2-column, and what's working about this, which wouldn't work if he did it any different way, is that he's got very strong visuals on the left. And in fact, if you go to his page, and we'll see another example of him later, he's put all of his books on the left, and so that the text is on the right. So that is really easy on the eye, and it also is a statement of, okay, I've done these things. Here's my professional lineup on the left, and here's what's currently happening on the right. At the top here, we've got a bar that's kind of 3D. That's the only thing I would say, pull that out because it looks like it's grabbable, and so everything kind of needs to make interactive logical sense as well as visual sense. So because we can't grab and do anything with that 3D bar on the top, I would try to get rid of that and just put a line if you need to or whatever. But what I like is that there's no header at the top.
I'm surprised we don't see more people doing this kind of option with typepad, because it's it gets you away from that banners at the top type of arrangement. Yeah.
And there's another example we'll see later where the banner at the top is just really minimalist and just kind of pulls your eye into the center of the page, which is nice. So in answer about the columns, that is as much of kind of a creative answer. Like if I was working with somebody like that, I would say, okay, let's stage your information. Let's look at what you're trying to do. Let's look at your business goals. Let's look at what you're trying to represent and how many times you're going to be updating your information. And then the decisions about columns, because it's never a one answer, that would be driven by your content and your business goals and how you want to be perceived and how you want to be read and how much you want to be read. Or if you're an art gallery, how much you want to be seen, and it's not a one answer. So unfortunately, sorry.
Yeah. We did have a question about font size and font styles. Do you have any advice or thinking around font size, especially depending on the age group of your readership or your customers?
Yeah. So we're going to get to that in I believe the last principal, drama and staging. We've got typographical and color logic and stuff. But just the quick answer to that is that. As a UI designer, I learned that you have to be incredibly sensitive to your audience, and demographics, really matter. So if you've got, elderly, and you've got a product or you've got a business that that serves the elderly, you definitely want to be making the type size larger. You can even put in a control to, adjust the type. I think, there's people who can possibly, I don't know, I'll have to ask Andy about that, but there might be ways to control different, dials so that you can change the type size, or the audience can actually change the type size. But all of that stuff, yeah, definitely needs to be considered as you put this together.